Welcome to our live video series. Today we're going to take a look at the Hyundai Elantra, the 2022. This is the preferred model, and I'm going to kind of blow your mind in about 3 minutes. So here's the deal. If you've never been on this channel before, we do a live video every single weekday at 2 o'clock, and in the first 3 minutes we talk about some news and some notes, and we allow our live audience to build. At the 3-minute mark, we're gonna get going with the content on this video. So if you're not live with us right now and you wanna just skip ahead to the content, feel free, you can do that, no hard feelings, but you may wanna stick around for some of our news and notes as well, because we're gonna talk about tomorrow's car, which should be the refreshed Kia Forte, which is kind of a competitor to this car. So we'll be able to look at this car today, that car tomorrow, and really get a sense of what's different between the two models, between one and the other. So we're gonna flip around here. I'm just gonna flip the camera around. As we do that, you can see how to join us live. This is our YouTube channel, and if you refresh the page at exactly 2 o'clock, which is what we're doing right now, you'll see that the live video page will come up right here on the bottom of the screen. We're gonna click into that. As we click, oops, I did the wrong button. I clicked on the Q there. So we're gonna show you how to do that again. Close the player. We're gonna click into there in the center of the screen there, and then you'll come up. It's gonna run an ad for another dealer group, which is awesome. While we're running their ad and that dealer group is paying our dealer group, we are going to quickly tell you what's going on. Or we're going to run an ad for our own group. We are Brantford Kia, Brantford Hyundai, and Owen Sound Hyundai. Those are 3 dealers that support this channel. If you're looking to buy a car in Ontario, connect with me. There'll be a link in the description below this video. As soon as we're done, you can connect with me there, and I will hook you up with our sales team, and they will take care of you anywhere in the province. All right, so what's going on? I was at the Hyundai dealer last night, hung out there a little bit in the evening, and I was talking to their sales manager. We have an Ioniq 5 on rail. That means that it is on a train between Vancouver and Ontario. So it is coming, and when it gets here, we'll have a video of it here, and I'm kind of looking forward to seeing that car in person more than just the LA Auto Show video that we just did. So that car's coming in. Like I mentioned, we've got new Fortes coming in tomorrow. So that's the GT line, which is an all-new trim line, and we're gonna compare that with the GT, which is, of course, the top trim line with the more powerful engine. So that's coming in tomorrow, so a good sort of comparison between today and tomorrow. And then EV6, while we're talking about Ioniq 5, EV6, we've been taking your pre-orders here. Connect with us because it's limited availability of those cars. If you get your order in early, you will reserve a spot in line, and you can adjust that order when we know more about trim lines and full pricing and that kind of thing. But you can reserve that with us. So watch my EV6, how to order your EV6 video that we just posted on Friday. That'll be a good one for you to keep an eye on there. I've got 15 seconds to go, so we got a bunch of regulars on. Do me a favor, if you're a regular with us, hit that like button right now for me. And if you're not a regular with us, I'm gonna try to earn your like throughout this video. So if at any point I do something that, you know, maybe you find is a little bit helpful or just useful or you just appreciate me being here, hit the like button at that point. All right, we are 3 minutes in, and I told you I would kind of blow your mind in a second. So here we go, 2022. I almost said that wrong. 2022 Hyundai Elantra. My very first brand new car was a 2002 Elantra. It looked nothing like this, but it wasn't priced like this either. And I want to make a point about small cars today that I think is worth noting. So this is the Elantra pricing right now. Let's just start at the bottom end here. Essential is $17,999 is the MSRP. The preferred that we're looking at today is $21,999. Now, my very first brand new car was a 2002 Hyundai Elantra GT. MSRP on that, $18,500. $18,500 for a stick shift, no ABS. I think it only had 2 airbags. And that was in 2002 dollars. So those of you that are saying, like, you know, cars are getting really expensive right now, you're right. SUVs, trucks are getting expensive, but these cars are still holding the line in pricing, and they're blowing those cars away in features and safety and all kinds of things. So $21,999, let's call that $18,500 in 2002 dollars. Somebody can do the math on that and check inflation. But the point is, $18,500 is still more expensive than this, and we're talking 2002 dollars for my very first Elantra. So the nice thing is, what's going on with small cars is they are still a screaming good value. And you really start seeing that when you start comparing small cars to small crossovers and other types of vehicles like that, because you get so much more features in a vehicle like this than you would in a small crossover. So somebody says, Kias have good resale values. They're not bad. And we're also talking to Hyundai today. So we'll talk about the Hyundais first, and we'll go from there. Okay, so let's jump in. First thing I want to show you again. Think about my 2002 car and what it was. It's... So somebody says, so in other words, you've always been a Kia Hyundai fan and this was your dream job. I don't know. bought a 2002 Hyundai Elantra. That was the only Hyundai I owned until I owned a few Kias later in life, and I've had a lot of cars, so that's a whole other story. All right, so here's your key fob right now for the 2002 or 2022 Hyundai Elantra Preferred. So you have lock, unlock, remote start is now standard on the key fob. Pop the trunk and the panic button there as well. Remote start is a pretty nice feature to have. Not everybody has that, and right there on the key fob. So I read somewhere an article yesterday that Toyota is going to charge you potentially. I only read the headline, so there's probably a whole story to this that I should be giving context. But Toyota's going to charge you to use remote start key fob. So that seems odd. We have apps that do that, but we're not going to charge you for the key fob thing. Not that I'm aware of. So if they do, I'm with you people. If they do that, that's a silly idea. All right. You also, with that keyless entry, have the ability to touch this button, open the door, or double tap it and open all the doors. And as you get in, you get a very comfortable car here. So I'm going to talk about a lot of things here. The seat, although it's a manual seat, which is totally fine by me, it's also height adjustable. I didn't have that in 2002, that's for sure. And you get a little bit of style here. Like, let's not claim this is like, world class or anything like that, but it's got some nice shaping here. It does look like a nice, fancy kind of seat, and it also is very comfortable. And again, that's one of the big things you get when you get in these small cars, is they don't have the tiny seats anymore. It used to be that you didn't want to take a car like this on a road trip across the country. Now I would say you could absolutely do that without any issues. So coming over here to the dash, let's just show you, we showed you the key fob and we showed you the button on the door, and that of course means you have a push button start. So we're gonna just tap it twice without hitting the brake to turn the car on. We're not gonna fully start the car. One thing I rarely mention, and I feel like I should, it's a little harder to film, so this is why I don't always mention it, but let me see what I can do. There we go. I've released the steering wheel. So if I can do this with two hands or one hand, there we go. Steering wheel in. This steering wheel is tilt and telescopic, even on this trim line, which is kind of something that I don't point out, but it's very easy to get comfortable in this car. Hey, there's my boss behind us. That's him over there. Maybe he'll watch later and we can wave at him. He probably won't watch. Oh yeah, look at that. Anyway, so he's now on video. Anyway, so tilt telescopic steering wheel. It's very easy to get comfortable here because you have the height adjustable seat, you have the tilt and telescopic steering wheel, and so you can place that exactly where you need to. And you have over here the height adjustable seat belts. Now you might say height adjustable seat belts. My brother-in-law bought a Chev full-size pickup. It doesn't have height adjustable seat belts. So as much as you think these may be common, they're not. So whether you're tall or short, you're going to fit in this car comfortably. Got lots of legroom front and rear, so it's very easy to get comfortable no matter what size you are. Now, flipping around over here, let's talk about some of the features. Inside the dash, kind of the typical stuff. Now, because the camera has one eye and I have two eyes, it kind of sends you down this tunnel and it doesn't look like you can see everything, but you can easily see that whole gauge over there. You can easily see this whole gauge over there when you have two eyes, and you can easily see the digital screen over here. So kind of cool way they do the gauges here. They kind of build them into each other. You got the speedometer front and center, which is the way I think it should be. 7.8 liters per 100 kilometers. I usually say don't pay attention to fuel efficiency. In this case, it's close. I can certainly do better than that in this car, and we'll show you the fuel efficiency ratings later, but you've got all kinds of things like your lane keeping and lane following assist types screen there. You've got your attention level here, which of course I've paid full attention since I started the car. And you have your tire pressure monitors in every wheel there. So we can go across here, and then all kinds of settings, which we'll talk about some of these a little bit later. And you can change the theme, so the coloring of the thing. There's so many settings in there. One day we'll have to do a video on just the settings in the Elantra. So again, same thing here. You can ignore some of the fuel efficiency numbers, 9.1. This car would be idling a little bit being a brand new car, but 7.1 we did. There's your, if you want to have it just a digital speedometer up there, you can have that as well. And of course your driving modes, which we'll talk about as we move forward in this video as well. So a lot of good information here. And again, compared to a 2002, which costs about equal in 2002, $18,500 in 2002 was my top of the line Elantra. And this has so many more features. Over here, speaking of features you couldn't get in 2002, I had a CD player, a single CD player, and speakers. You've got at least six, well, yeah, you've got 6 speakers here as well. And you have a stereo. And the difference with this stereo is it's just an AM FM stereo, but you have the HD radio as well. So you can clarify, like get a little more clarity to some of your music when you go to that. If you've never listened to an HD radio station, it's kind of listening to, just really clear, crystal clear music, sounds really good. So that's a good way to make your speakers sound better, even if you don't have the high-end stereo. Just listen to your music in the higher definition radio. And then of course, you have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. So Android Auto and Apple CarPlay is standard across the Kia and Hyundai lineup right now, but the difference is on these 8-inch screens, and this is kind of the silly thing, the smaller screens actually have the better feature with the Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. being wireless. So something like the Hyundai Palisade does not have that on the top trim lines, but the Elantra here has that, the wireless Android Auto and wireless Apple CarPlay. And that, of course, means you have navigation right through here because of your cell phone. Google Maps, Apple Maps, Waze, those kinds of things. You can project them right up onto here, and you'll have navigation. You'll have all kinds of things. The other thing the screen's good for is good color. You have a nice clear backup camera that looks like it's pretty dirty right now. That's actually not a clear. Actually, I wonder if that still has plastic on top, but it is definitely a dirty camera right now. Normally I can see the floor clearly. You can see it's not easy to see clearly because the camera lens out back is dirty, but you do have a nice color display, and you can see the guidelines there, yellow and red. Sort of guide roughly where you're going, and the blue you would line up with the parking spot, and they are well-placed lines in this car. They're not just sort of artist's drawings. You can line them up with the parking spot and really get centered in that lane, which makes it nice and easy. One little thing I like about the buttons here, I should point out, is let's just put it back in park. If you want to go to like Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, you can set up a button to take you right there. So you can go radio, you can go media, like say your Bluetooth media, and then you can set up your Android Auto Apple CarPlay to just wirelessly come up. So when you want to pull up your Google Maps or something like that, you can voice activate it, or you can just set that button up for that. You can set that button up for other things as well. So just a really smart system in here, and yeah, it just makes sense. One thing that hasn't changed since 2002, I had the same types of controls on my 2002 Hyundai Elantra. So 20 years of innovation, and this is what we get. Now, to be fair, you can get this car in higher trim levels with a digital sort of display cluster down here for, I think it's a dual zone system in the higher trims, but it's certainly a more automatic system. But here, this is perfectly fine. The reason they do this is because it works. Hot and cold, fan speed, and direct the air where you want it. Super simple. One thing you couldn't get in 2002, at least not in my car, heated seats, heated steering wheel as well. So you've got the tilt and telescopic steering wheel that fits anybody, and then you've got the heated steering wheel. Now, why is a heated steering wheel so important, even in an economy car? You might think, I've never had a heated steering wheel before, I don't need a heated steering wheel now. Well, now that everything's touchscreen, including your Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, you're not going to drive with gloves anymore. You're going to have them off, you're going to use the touchscreen. It's more comfortable, it's usually safer to drive with no gloves on. And when it's heated, instead of having those gloves, I'm going to turn my seat heater off because it's already getting warm. We'll talk about that in a second. But instead of having those gloves on, you can have your hands on that heated steering wheel and it warms them up. So really important to have, even in an economy car, heated steering wheel. It's really nice to have. Now, here comes the controversy. Some people are going to find this to be no problem at all. I kind of think it's a cool design element, but some people feel like it separates them a little bit from the passenger and that kind of thing, which, you know, depending on your passenger, may be a good thing, may not be. It doesn't bother me at all sitting in the passenger spot, but it is an asymmetrical design here. So this is a taller kind of panel out there. They can still easily reach their cup holder. There's one here or a deeper one there. So you can set up two deep ones, or you can make it a shorter one and a deeper cup holder there as well. So yeah, passenger seat has no trouble reaching the cup holders here. But over in the gear shift, there is a bit of a area there. Some people think it looks different. I don't think it bothers me at all. And I'm having a really tough time filming it accurately to show you, but it is something that is different. There's a real asymmetrical design here, which, like I said, I think looks kind of cool. Down in here, USB port in the center. That's how you're going to connect Android Auto, Apple CarPlay if you go wired. USB port over here and a 12-volt port over here as well. And there's a space to put some stuff, quite a bit of stuff down here, your phone or other things. Let's talk drive modes now while we're here. Drive modes, you can sort of see that button right there. It says drive mode, trying to get it clear. So when I press the button, I'm going to go over to the digital dash over here. And again, because the car's not running, that's why there's warning lights on. So when I hit that button, drive modes, we can see you have sport, smart, and normal. So you'll notice there's no eco mode. Now, I don't think you should worry about that because let me just zoom back out and flip over here. Whoops, there we go. The eco mode has been replaced by the smart mode. So the smart mode is good because when you put it in smart mode, the car is going to set itself up to basically be economical. And most people's driving, that's how they drive, you know, through town, through the country, even on the highway. They kind of just touch the throttle. They're not hard on the throttle. They're not hard on the brakes. And eco mode works great. Where eco mode used to kind of fail is you'd be driving around economically, and then you get on the highway and you give it a little bit of gas and it resisted downshifting. You give it a little bit more gas, it would resist downshifting again. And then you give it lots of gas and it would floor the throttle and the revs would go like crazy, because eco mode was always trying to save you as much fuel as possible. Unless you floored it, then it would override everything and give you full power. So smart mode senses what you're doing with the gas pedal and everything else, and it can allow it to adapt out of that mode. So in other words, you're driving around a country road, just kind of lightly touch the throttle, but you're getting ready to pass somebody, you get into the throttle, it'll be like, oh, you want some quicker shifts, you want to keep it in the power, I'm going to put you in sport mode or normal mode, whatever fits what you're gas pedal is doing. And that's a good way to get the car to work with you better. So I really like leaving it in, instead of the normal mode there, the smart mode. And of course, sport mode just makes it more punchy. So sport mode is a lot of fun as well. And somebody says, eco mode just equals no fun, in my opinion. And yeah, that's okay. That's probably true. Eco mode takes the fun out. But to be fair, 90% of most people's driving isn't fun. You have to drive through traffic, and it is what it is. So the smart mode does a really good job of, hey, you're driving efficiently. I'm going to take you out of that normal mode and put you in a more efficient mode. And then if you get into the throttle again, I'll put you back in that normal mode. So it's kind of a nice mode to have that way. Speaking of nice things to have as well, this car is capable of steering itself, and that can freak people out a little bit. So let's talk about what that means. First of all, you have a button way down over there. Let's just, oh, you can see it there. Yeah, okay, there we go. So that one in the center there. That is your lane keeping button. That is pretty much almost always on. And for most people, I would recommend leaving it on. So what it can do is there's a camera. Oops, I keep hitting the camera, guys. Sorry about that. There's a camera up there that looks forward through the windshield, and it can see the lane markers. And if you come out to the lane marker and go up to it and cross it, it'll beep at you, and it's capable of steering you back into the lane a little bit. So the reason that's important is as we get distracted with cars, you shouldn't be looking at your screen, but let's face it, we're all going to be a little bit distracted. And if you get a little bit distracted and that lane keeping assist is on, it's going to nudge you back in the lane after it beeps at you. So again, capable of steering yourself, pretty non-intrusive if you drive like a normal person. The one that I really like is this one right here. That's lane follow assist. So it's also going to look at the lane markers, but it can also use the vehicle in front of you as a reference point. There's all sorts of reference points it looks for, and it works at basically all driving speeds. I think it's like 0 to 200. So all practical driving speeds, that lane follow assist works. And what that does is it can keep the car centered in the lane. So what you have is you have to keep your hands on the wheel, and it'll just nudge itself left and right just a little tiny bit. And if it senses your hand resisting it, it'll just keep going forever. But it will keep you centered in the lane. And I use this a ton, and I'm the kind of guy who's a control freak. I want to have control of my car. I want to have fun at all times. Yeah, and we do. But that feature is amazing. A lot of people really like it once they understand what it does. And again, if you want to sort of cut corners in a country road, you just tap it off. And again, you turn it on. It never defaults to on, but you can turn it on if you want. And you can turn it off to kind of like, you know, get tight to the corners and tight to the corners when you're curving through. So a lot of fun, but it also makes your regular everyday driving really good. Just keeps you centered in that lane, and you can kind of just enjoy the scenery a little bit more. It's always your responsibility to keep the car under control, but you'd be amazed when you drive a car with this, that when you get in a car without it, how often you kind of weave through the lane and you don't even realize it. You start to realize how much you weave through the lane when you start getting this there instead. Cruise control is there standard. You've got your audio controls over on this side here. Headlights we'll talk about in a second. And right now, instead, what we're going to do is we're going to take some questions. So we've got less people on, and that makes sense. When we do some of these economy cars, we have a few less people on. So that means I can answer most of your questions if you want to ask them. And it also means we haven't got a whole lot of likes coming. So we've only got 36 people on. We've got 25 likes. We'll have a couple hundred people on throughout this video. So let's see if we can get to, I don't know, let's call it 45 likes today. So that's 20 more likes than what we have right now. We can do that. We can get there. So do me a favor if you want to all hit the button right now. I'm going to set this up and take your questions. I just got to zip over on the right part of the computer over here and get back to your questions. There we go. Okay. Off topic. Cruise control and Santa Cruz, we'll talk about that later. So again, off-topic questions we'll get to in about 10 minutes or so when we're wrapping up the content of this video. I have no problems answering those, but we just want to stay on topic for those that are watching just for this. Do the lane assist technologies work if you're on a country road, say, where there's only the center line and no real lane marker on the right side? That's a brilliant question. So lane keeping assist is generally going to show you both lanes, and that's really what it needs to keep you in both lanes. Remember I said you the display screen of the car between the two lanes in the center display screen? Actually, let's just show you for a second. This is how you can tell what your car sees, and it's actually really kind of cool. So let me just flip the camera around. Sorry about that terrible camera work. So let's just go back to this right here. So that display screen, I'm going to turn on the lane follow assist. So you see the steering wheel come on. Right now, those two lines on the side are grayed out. So when you're driving down a country road and you've only got the center lane, so the left side lane, and the car sees it, as soon as the car sees the lane, this grayed out lane will become white. When it sees this lane, the grayed out lane will become white as well. And then these can become green when the car is actively steering the car. So whenever they're green, the car is actively steering. It can sometimes see both lane markers and decide not to actively steer. Sometimes it can just see one lane marker and decide to actively steer if you have the steering wheel one on there, which is lane follow assist. So generally speaking, lane keeping assist on the left usually needs to see both lanes. Lane follow assist can use a number of reference points, and on occasion, and actually pretty regularly out in my area, it can sense, okay, that's the side of the road, I've got where we're going, and I can keep you going in the center lane. So it is a system that the lane follow assist does not necessarily need to see the right side lane marker, or I guess in theory the left side lane marker, but certainly the right side lane marker it doesn't have to see in order for it to steer. But if those aren't green, it's not going to be actively capable of steering the car. So yes, they can drive without seeing those lane markers, but you can kind of keep an eye on what it's doing and what it's seeing as well through that display screen there. So good question. LED lighting, we'll talk about that. So somebody said, was test driving a Tucson on the road with no lane markers at all. It wanted to keep me in the center of the road. Not really that safe. So it would have been a narrow road. And keep in mind, that's a system you can turn on or off, right? Like it's gonna nudge you a little bit, but if it doesn't know the lane markers, if it thinks you're on a single lane, yeah, with no lane markers, then of course, you're just gonna tap it off, right? Where it works really well and where it's designed to be used is lane markers like you're on a highway. I use it in town here all the time too, but if you're on a highway, you use that marker and it sees the lane markers and you can go for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles just keeping you centered in that lane. It does a really, really good job. When there's construction and lane markers that do this and that, sometimes you can feel it just nudge you a little bit. Again, if you have your hands on the wheel, it'll never take you out of control. It's never a big deal. And you just tap it off and decide, hey, I'm gonna steer through this without the little bit of a nudge here and there. So super simple. If you wanna steer past the lane markers, signaling turns the system off so you can go over the lane markers and you can easily steer. It's just kind of feels like there's a little bit of a dip in the road. So you come to the edge and it'll just kind of nudge you back. So very, very simple system. Is the difference in price for the hybrid worth it for the fuel economy? That's something you guys are gonna have to decide for your driving. Hybrids are big sellers. People like them for a couple reasons. One, people like hybrids because the way it drives. People buy hybrids for the same reason they buy muscle cars. They get in it, they like the way it drives. Other people like the way that it's good for the air quality, environment, that kind of thing. It can drive, several hundred meters at a time on pure electric power at times. Will it save you the fuel efficiency? It's going to depend on your type of driving. I don't like doing the math on that. I'm on the record as saying that an electric vehicle is not going to be cheaper than a gas vehicle, and it can really depend on the whole way you do the math. I can make the case that an electric vehicle is cheaper than a gas vehicle, but it depends on the way you do the math and what you're comparing it to. So hybrid vehicles, I think, are going to be the future. You're going to find that pretty much everything's going to be a hybrid at some point before it goes fully electric. So I would definitely consider driving them both. I had a hybrid for a long time, quite like it. It just depends. So you do a lot of highway driving? Yeah, it might be. You're going to have to do the math based on your own driving. I'm not probably the right math guy for that. But we have done a hybrid video of the Elantra, so you can for sure check it out on our channel. All right. Where are we here? If there's a question I missed, Australia and Europe have a GT line trim. Oh, we're talking about different things. Okay, that's a different car. I doubt the 2002 wasn't as roomy as my 2022. Yes, 2002 car was a little bit smaller car. I had the hatchback though, which was pretty cool back in 2002. So we talked earlier in this video about me having a 2002 Elantra as my first new vehicle, and it's Elantra. Is there a PHEV or a hybrid? Yes, there is a hybrid Elantra. We've done a video on that as well. Does this or the Ultimate without the tech package have manual lumbar? So no, it does not have a lumbar adjustment on this seat. I will say I am one of those people with a very funny back. I have a back injury from my 30s. I don't find this seat to be a problem for me at all. They seem to have enough lumbar support. I generally like a little bit extra, and the cars I end up buying have that, but I could certainly drive this car without any real issue. So you have to just try it for yourself. Seat comfort is always about trying it for yourself. I don't like to tell people that a seat is comfortable or not comfortable. I just tell you if it fits this size person, and you can decide if that's comfortable for you. In the back in the Elantra, this is the preferred model. A few less things than I'd like to see in this exact trim line. And there's nothing really wrong with this, but it's just something to be aware of. So back here, headroom, no problem. I'm 6 feet tall. You can see that's good. I like that the seats are high. So come on, camera, there we go. So my legs are flush to the seat and I've got room to move my feet around underneath there. A couple things I'd like to see added back here. I'd like to see pockets in the seat. It doesn't have them. I'd like to see vents back here. It doesn't have that. And there's no USB port back here as well. So in some ways, This is the perfect car if you have kids, because you don't have a situation where, first of all, these plastic back seats, wipe it with a damp rag and they're perfectly clean. They're not sticking their Cheerios down the vents or in the USB ports. And it's, again, just plastic back seats where you're wiping them clean. So that might be a pro for some people. It might be a con. The other thing that's a little bit interesting is this car, this particular trim, does not have a rear center armrest. Again, I don't know that it matters. If you have kids back here, you're just gonna put them in the car seats. If you have adults, you're still fully comfortable. You got armrests on the doors kind of thing, but this particular trim, couple less things than I'd like to have. And again, it's just about making cuts. To give you some of the driver technologies, you end up losing some of these rear seat technologies. And that's probably a fair thing for most of the time. These are gonna have probably 1 or 2 people in them, not always 4 people. One thing I didn't point out, safety-wise, you have blind spot detection, which is blind spot collision avoidance. So what that means is, in your blind spot, if I'm here, let's say there's a lane in the middle and I'm over here, you're signaling, there's nobody in there, so you start coming over, and then all of a sudden I start coming over at the same time. Your blind spot with collision avoidance can see that happening through the radar plate back here, and is capable of braking the front, let's say right side wheel, which would nudge you back away. So it'll beep at you, warning you, hey, someone's now in that lane, and you can come back over. So if you signal and someone's in that lane, it'll beep at you anyways. But the nice thing is, people wonder why it would be collision avoidance. Like, if it's beeping at you, why would you turn into that person? Well, there may be somebody in a space over here, and there's a lane between where you start coming in and I start coming in, and then it can warn you and it can nudge you away, which is kind of nice. So yeah, just kind of a nice thing. The other thing that's nice is most sedans don't have a button back here to pop the trunk. You usually only see that on a hatchback design or an SUV. Just gonna shut this door over here. And this one does have that, which I quite like. I think that makes a lot of sense. And then you've got my teddy bear test coming up here. The nice thing about sedans versus small crossovers is the amount of floor space you get. So this is easily a teddy bear and a half trunk space. And on most crossovers, teddy bear is, you know, right there. If you look at the Kona, for instance, the end of the floor is here, whereas this one, you've got all this extra floor space, and it's quite a bit of extra floor space. It's hard to kind of show it. But yeah, like I said, a teddy bear and a half, maybe even teddy bear and 3/4 of width here. So a very large trunk as far as floor space. The difference between this and a crossover or a hatchback is a crossover and a hatchback has a larger opening and you can stack things a little higher. But most people like the fact that you can have a lot of floor space in here, and it's kind of hidden storage, right? So it's, you know, it's not like a hatchback where everything's visible in there. Underneath the floor here, let's take a peek. You have a spare tire. A lot of people want to see that in a small car. This car does have that. Again, we're going to look at the Forte tomorrow. We're going to see what it has and doesn't have. So there's that. And we're going to show you lighting, and then we'll go back to your questions. So lighting is different on the different trim lines in this car. So some trim lines you're going to have just kind of like a line in here and a line across there. This one will be a little different than that. So we'll show you that, again, depending on trim line. So let's do that really quickly. Jump over here, turn the car back to the on position, and turn the headlights to the on position as well. And why don't we turn one signal on so we can see the signals as well. Over here, higher trim levels will have a signal over here. This is, again, one step up from the bottom, no signal light there. I don't think that matters too much. Over here, you have 2 little white LED lights that you can kind of see there. They don't film really well at all. Oh boy, they really don't film well. So you can see that. Down here is the regular halogen, but projector beam headlights. So projector beam headlights have a nice sharp cutoff, and there's your signal light built right into the dash there. So projector beam headlights are gonna create a nice sharp cutoff, which we can show you as we come over here. Again, that nice, really sharp cutoff, which I quite like to see. Not LED lights. If you get higher trim levels, you can get the LED lights as well. Just depends on what you're looking for. And I like the way the signal is kind of blended in. The signal is right there, so you can see it clearly there. Actually, I'm not on the right angle to really film it. It doesn't show very well on camera at all compared to the brightness in real life, but it's kind of buried so you don't see it in the dash there. As we take a look at the back, the rear lights, you can see what I mean. The different trim lines have different types of lighting. So over here, instead of using this area right here as a big width, you know, when the LED lights are on here, it goes through there and it comes right through here. It's kind of different. You have just the red lights inside there and no lighting where there's LED lighting on the higher trims. And there's your signal light lit as well. So there is the 2022 Elantra Preferred model. We were going to go for 45 likes today. That means we're 4 away right now. So if there's 4 of you sitting there saying, hey, you know what? I appreciate your efforts and I'm going to give you a like, or I appreciate this car and I'm going to give it a like. Now's your chance to do that. So I'm going to take your questions here. Just make sure you got something before we wrap it up. And let's just sort of see where we're at. Looks like trunk lid hinges protrude well into the trunk space. I don't know if it's well into. I would say it is class competitive. I don't think there are many cars in this class that don't have some trunk lids, but if you want to take a look at it, let's make a judgment here. Whoops, come on. So we'll let you guys decide for yourselves. Do those trunk hinges come too far in? Yep, they come down a little bit. Again, very wide though. So I think sometimes on camera I zoom into something and I emphasize a little bit. There's a lot of space here. From that edge to that edge is quite a bit of space and a lot of way through. So, but again, yep, they do come into the trunk. That is one of the things that happens with these sedans, and you do have to pack accordingly. I don't think it's any different than most cars in the class. I think it would be very similar. The trunk space is among the class leaders in this vehicle, so you've got more space to move your stuff around than you would have in other vehicles with a similar design trunk. So there we go. Somebody says that's a lot of car for the money. It really is. So again, in 2002, I paid $18,500 for a 2002 Hyundai Elantra GT. Had alloy wheels. They were 15 inches. These are 16 inches. It did not have ABS. This has traction control, stability control, and ABS brakes, and a far better ABS system than they would have had back then. It's just got so many more things, and it's basically the same or cheaper price than my car was 20 years ago. And my car 20 years ago was a better deal than the Ford Focus of the time. And you know what happened to the Ford Focus? Ford doesn't make cars in this lineup. So Ford, Chrysler, GM, they don't make cars in this class anymore because they could not compete with the pricing of these cars. So I think that's really worth pointing out, that there's a lot of value in these cars. When you start getting a small crossover with this kind of equipment, you're up, sometimes into the 30 grand mark sometimes, depending on the brand. And you get a better deal here. All right, so somebody's not a fan of fake exhaust tips. Does Hyundai sell regular rear bumper, like say the N-Line? So the N-Line and N Elantras are both different engined cars than this one. This is a 2-liter 4-cylinder, about 147 horsepower. Those are different cars. So we have videos of that. We won't have a video of the N model Elantra yet, other than the video we did at the LA Auto Show. So you can see those videos. Excuse me. You can see those videos there. So there we go. Is there a pass-through from the back seat to the trunk area? Well, that's a good question. I believe there is on the higher trims. I feel like this one is as well, but now I don't remember. Yep, there we go. So you can pull down 60-40 split. Is it a 60-40 split? No. It is a, oh boy. Nope, yeah, nothing there. So it is a single fold. Higher trim levels will have a 60-40 split, but you can pull it down with the levers there. So again, that's part of that no armrest here. And I think, let's be honest about this. Hyundai has prioritized some of the safety features you get in this car, and the rear seat has been decontented a little bit. I think for a lot of people, they do their market research, and I think for a lot of people, that makes sense, right? Most people driving this car are not a 4-person car all the time. It's a 2-person car most of the time, and maybe there's some people in the back, some kids in the back. So that's what they've done with this car. And if you're gonna have to make compromises to hit this price point, which is again, second from the bottom price point, I think they made some pretty good sacrifices. I mean, these features weren't available at any trim level in the higher trim economy cars just a couple years ago. So somebody says Ford doesn't make sedans anymore. That's true. That's kind of my point, right? So the Elantra today costs less. When you talk about $2002 to today's dollars, this costs less than I paid in 2002. You get way more, and it's not like there's more competition that's driven the price down. It's just they've decided to make this car a really screaming good deal. All right, I have people in my rear seat maybe 5 to 10% of the time. Backseat features don't really matter to me. So that's kind of my point, right? Sometimes if you're gonna have to make a feature decision, sacrificing some backseat space in this class at this price point to give you those driver-friendly features, I think makes sense. All right, guys, I think we're gonna leave it there. Somebody asked me something about the Santa Cruz earlier. I think it was about the cruise control in it, and I think it had to do with the smart cruise control. If you have smart cruise control in the Santa Cruz, it's only smart cruise control. So it's not a, not smart cruise control. Holding the distance to vehicle button doesn't seem to work like it does on the Palisade. Okay, so William Park, about your Santa Cruz, if it doesn't work properly, just double check with your dealer to make sure that it's working as supposed to. It's hard for me to diagnose on YouTube, especially on a live video where people are expecting me to move through things quickly. All right. So why wouldn't we have a GT line Sportage is sort of an off-topic question here. Australia and Europe have a GT line trim for the new 2023 Sportage or Sportage if you're in the States. Why wouldn't the GT line trim be available in North America? I think the short answer is everybody has to remember that we are still in an extreme chip shortage, supply chain shortage. There's all kinds of shortages and stuff. The Hyundai Tucson right now, the higher end trims are 6 months plus delivery. That's what we're told right now. We don't have a date on those. So Sportage is now being introduced, and it has to make some decisions about where they're going to fit, equipment and trim levels. And we're expecting to sell the Sportage in volume. So in a chip shortage of launching a vehicle, they're going to make certain decisions. And just because it doesn't have the name of a GT or GT line doesn't mean it won't have some of those features, but there's no question they're going to make some feature choices about what comes into these vehicles so that they can produce them in volume numbers and sell. Kia and Hyundai have done a pretty good job. I think both are growing right now through this whole COVID situation. So they're seeming to meet the needs of consumers. But yeah, we don't get everything that we necessarily want. So my Santa Cruz, I mean, most cars come with that auto start stop that a lot of you guys seem to love to hate. Mine didn't come with that, and I guarantee you it didn't come with that because that's a chip shortage thing. If we're going to get rid of a feature, we're going to get rid of a feature that people, don't care about as much. So launching vehicles right now in this chip shortage and supply chain shortage thing is a tough thing to do because it's not like you can just, put out 30 vehicles at a time. You've got to supply every single dealer with enough vehicles all at once to launch the vehicle and then keep it going while there's early interest. So there are some decisions being made around the world about how they're going to equip things. Do we have Tucsons coming in anytime soon? Still long wait times there? Yeah, still long wait times for most Tucsons. I have the dates and stuff. Some are shorter than others. To be fair, anything in that segment from any brand, there's going to be wait times. So just choose the vehicle you want, and hopefully it's a Kia or Hyundai, and I'll walk you through those features. And when you own it, we'll go through more and more and more. You can subscribe to the channel and make your ownership experience fantastic. So that's what we do here. All right, guys, thanks for the 51 likes. I appreciate you guys jumping on that. Tomorrow we have, well, at least I'm supposed to. I don't have them yet. But tomorrow I'm supposed to have the new, refreshed Kia Forte GT and the Kia Forte GT line. The GT line's an all-new model. We're going to have both in here. We're going to compare them to each other, and you'll be able to compare that to today's video as well. So thanks for joining us today. We'll see you again live tomorrow at 2 o'clock, and have a good afternoon.